Unit 1 Fundamentals of Second Language Acquisition. Second language acquisition stands for the process by which people learn a second language. First language stands for the language that a person has been exposed to from birth. And second language is a language that is not the native language of the speaker but is learned later. Unit 2 The role of the first language. Characteristics of the language of a young children. Involuntary crying, babbling, produce individual words, and telegraphed sentence. The parents in language development. Grammatical morphemes acquisition. Present continuous progressive. Plurals. Irregular. Possessive. Copula, articles, regular past, third person singular present, and auxiliary be. Negation, they say no, they include don't, they include can, and they use the correct form and structure of the auxiliary. Question, they say a few words and rising intonations. They use declarative sentences. They produce question structure. They use some questions with subject and the auxiliary inversion. They can use WH questions and they can use negative questions. Unit 3 Theories of Second Language Acquisition. The innatism theory stands for that we born by knowing things and we universal parents, and we use the language acquisition device. This theory is made by Noam Chomsky. The cognitivism theory by Jean Piaget. This theory stands about how we store, receive, and organize information and how the mind organizes all the information. The sociocultural theory by Vygotsky. This theory is divided into the intrapersonal, which stands for when we talk to ourselves, the interpersonal, which stands for when we talk to others. We use the scaffolding that is growing our knowledge little by little, and we use the zone of proximal development, which stands for when someone that is more knowledgeable than us helps us to have more knowledge. The behaviorist theory by Skinner, Watson, and Pavlos. This theory stands for all the actions can be learned and unlearned. We use the operant conditioning that is formed by 4 steps, which is stimulus, response, reinforcement, and response becomes a habit. Unit 4 Stephen Krashen's Language Acquisition Theory. The acquisition learning process. This theory stands for how learning and acquisition needs to be on balance for an effective learning process. The natural order hypothesis. This hypothesis stands that language should be taught depending on the difficulty of the structure and the level of the language, which is from easy to hard. The affective filter hypothesis. This hypothesis stands about how feelings can affect the process of learning, and depending on how good you feel, the better you will learn. The input hypothesis. This hypothesis stands for in order to acquire a second language, we should receive comprehensible input. It only involves receptive skills, which are reading and listening. The monitor hypothesis, which stands for the relationship between learning and acquisition. This hypothesis has 3 types of users, which are overuser, optimal user, and underuser. The reading theory stands for the more you read, the more vocabulary you acquire, and if you use the free voluntary reading, you will be a more knowledgeable person. Unit 5, Individual Differences in Second Language Learning. What are the characteristics of a good language learner? Learning styles, personality, learning beliefs, motivation, attitude, and aptitude. Age of acquisition in the critical period hypothesis. This hypothesis stands for the best age to learn a language is before 15 years old. Unit 6, Learner's Language. This unit stands for interlanguage, which is when the learner has their L1 interference when they are speaking. Intralanguage, which are when the learner has a low level in English and they can communicate effectively. Fossilization is a term used to refer to those types of errors students make when they've been told it's wrong to say it in that way, but the fact that the errors doesn't seem to disrupt communications, it's enough reason to its improvement. And error analysis is the type of mistakes that the students make. Unit 7, Context for Language Learning. In structured learning, this structured learning is divided in two, which are in structure based, that is focused on grammar, and natural acquisition, that is focused on communication and interaction.